From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter show about Star Wars, pop culture, and the ultimate adventure, life itself. I'm Ken Napzok.
I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
And we are here to answer some Star Wars questions. That's right. You got questions. We have answers. Long form, short form, all forms are here today. Before we dive in, we want to remind you that today's show is sponsored by our own merch shop on Fourth Wall. Check it out. Swing on by. If you're on YouTube, the link is down below. If you're listening, you know that link is forcecenter-shop.fourthwall.com. Pick up a shirt, a coaster, a glass, a shirt for your coaster, a coaster for your glass. It's all relative. And I mentioned those as 3 examples, but there's a lot of things there. And if you think of something that you want, let us know. Again, the shop is at Fourth Wall at forcecenter-shop.fourthwall.com. Joseph, we're recording this. You're just back from a trip. People will already have seen you before. But I do feel guilty of making you do any heavy lifting. We are, though, highlighting some things.
That's right. We are highlighting Blue Sky. The way I said that, it made me sound like I was promoting the actual above us.
Above us only sky.
The ether, the beautiful, beautiful ether above us all. No, the social media, Blue Sky, that's where we're doing most of our posting right now, partially because I can't figure out how to get back into Threads, but also because we like Blue Sky. It is my favorite social media, and so we're trying to spend a little bit more time there. I dropped the ball on advertising one of our shows this week because I was busy at the film festival, but please do join us on Blue Sky. Really trying to make an effort of being there more often.
There indeed. All right. Well, we got some great questions. Let's dive on in.
That is right. So if you're new to one of these kind of episodes, basically we get questions from our patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to ask a question, there's a general post up there. Lots of people have asked questions, so we got a lot banked, but feel free to add yours if you're a patron on Patreon, or hey, become a patron so you can ask these kind of questions. We encourage people to include their own perspective, kind of what their opinion might be or the why of how they're asking the question. So these are sometimes a little essay questions as well. And we have a lovely little essay question from Will Culbertson, who says, "Hello, ForceCenter friends. With The Mandalorian and Grogu only a few months away, the biggest question I have about the film is whether or not it is going to start with the traditional opening crawl. At some point, I remember Kathleen Kennedy saying in an interview that all theatrical releases would have an opening crawl going forward. But a lot has changed since then, and I don't know if that's still true. Personally, I would love it if all the films had the traditional crawl. I would even be in favor of retroactively adding one to both Rogue One and Solo on Disney+. The special editions,
Yes.
Will's arguing for. But, well, I'm also trying to set my expectations that they might be wanting to change things up a bit. So my question is, if it is true that all the films will have a crawl, what changes do you think they might make to the presentation of the crawl that would differentiate it from the Skywalker Saga films? Different color Star Wars logo and text, different music, a short cold open sequence before the crawl and title reveal? Would love to know your thoughts. Thanks." Thank you, Will. This is great. We haven't had a good, solid crawl conversation in a while. I do want to kick it off with the sort of distinction between opening crawl and opening text. Rogue One, of course, has got nothing. We just bang into a planet. Solo, we get some opening text. In a similar fashion, we also get that in Ahsoka Season 1 and Skeleton Crew, and maybe something else that I'm forgetting. But certainly the opening text to set you in time, in place of to set you where you are in the timeline of Star Wars, and also to kind of set some of the thematic stakes have been there in Solo, Ahsoka Season 1, and Skeleton Crew, but we haven't had an opening crawl sense of the Skywalker Saga film. So what's your initial reaction? Do you think there will be one for Mandalorian and Grogu, and do you want one?
Ooh, 2 important questions. First of all, this is a 2016 flashback question, and I love it, Will. And I think it's important to say it's a flashback because the conversation in 2016 was a little more radical of like, they would do a Star Wars thing without a crawl, and they did. And I do wish the Solo style crawl was there on Rogue One. But I think looking to your questions, I don't think there will be one in the way that we are familiar. And I kind of do want something, but we'll maybe list our options. I'm intrigued by the cold open for this film. But yeah, in terms of laying down my bets, because you can bet on everything these days and make a lot of money in definitely not suspicious ways. But I definitely vote, bet, no crawl.
Yeah, I don't think there will be a traditional opening crawl. I do remember
Mhm.
Kathleen Kennedy saying that, and to me, I even at the time I remember wondering, like, does she mean literally crawl, or does she mean some sort of opening
Right.
text? And
Right.
I think Will is voting for, like, no, give me the crawl, change the font, change the color. Don't change the perspective. Make it crawl up that way.
Mhm.
Will it be an opening scroll? An opening page turner? I want there to be text. Even if it's a cold open, then text. I want there to be text because I think it is important to set the timeline
Mhm.
and set the stakes. And I think I would like that for all Star Wars films because we are playing with this massive timeline, and I think it's a fun way to tell a story to kind of get you to lean in like you're being told a story by a storyteller. That, text that ends with an ellipsis of like, here's the stakes, here's the situation, here are the fears, here are the anxieties, here's the world these characters find themselves in. Now what will they do in this world? Such a great mood. But for Mandalorian and Grogu, which is going to struggle a little bit with the ding of, do you have to have seen and memorized three and a half, depending on how you include Book of Boba Fett, 3.5 seasons of television? Or do you want somebody who's like, yeah, I think I saw some Star Wars ones. It's got Darth Vader. I'll see this one. You do have to set them in terms of the stakes of the world. So
Mhm.
I think there will definitely be opening text. And I think it's really, I think it's also, it seems fitting with the way they're advertising this film in terms of just like the serial adventure and the pulp flavor of the advertising of the text, of literally the Mandalorian Grogu with the big, bold, diagonal, and the
Mhm.
quotes and all this sort of old schoolness. I think
Mhm.
there's just got to be text. What
Mhm.
what would you want out of the text in terms of content or style?
Uh, you just made me think of that. Yeah, they are so leaning in on that font, the adventure font, kind of going on right
Hmm.
now with the logo. That yeah, that I could see something like that happen. Right, just coming on
Hmm.
screen. I what am I definitely think it just needs to start by saying the Mandalorian and Grogu, not season 4, and it just needs to roll up. But that said, I do want a little bit of a frame of reference. I think that was the one thing missing from Rogue One, which maybe now, again, 10 years on, seems silly because we so know, where Rogue One was, and now we have Andor leading up to it, and I don't think people are as lost. But I think it's important, and I'm not just saying for the general audience. I just think sometimes it's for these fairy tale space saga myths that we're enjoying here. I like just having a little bit of something that pulls you in, that sets the tone. And there are questions about what has happened following Mandalorian season 3. And I don't need the answers. I don't need a previously on, but just
Mm-mm.
something, the New Republic is still fledgling. Crime lords are still grabbing power. Remnants are out there. And in the middle of it comes a father and son to chase adventure, whatever it might be. I think it'd be fun, but also
Mhm.
just set the tone a little bit.
Yeah. No, I really agree with you. I think that is absolutely what it needs. I don't think it needs to start with, Cara Dune has uh,
Has gone to her
attempted to
planet.
return to her home planet, which no longer exists. I don't think it needs to start with that. I
Hmm.
think I think Grief Karga's passing as a character.
Yeah.
Carl Weathers needs to be celebrated. We've already seen in the Orabesh hint in the trailer, but Grief
Mhm.
Karga needs to be celebrated, but I think not within the opening crawl. But all that is to say, I think, yeah, it's just it's a time of transition. There's a new government, but
Mhm.
there are factions of the empire that want us clinging and stuck in the past. And we've said a lot. Almost all of the Mandoverse big picture is about, we have this opportunity to change. Who do we want to be? Do we just want to be stuck in the old ways? And that goes everything from the Empire to, the pirates that we meet in Skeleton Crew, to Ahsoka and the Jedi, to Din in Mandalorian ways. Of that we have an opportunity to do things differently. Are we going to, or are we going to be dragged back to the past? So it sort of sets that
Mm.
theme,
Mm.
and then really sets it in this confused time. A son is teaching his father what is the moral way to be in the galaxy, how to be a good
Right.
person in the galaxy. I mean, I know a lot of people would be like, absolutely no to this, and it sounds cheesy, but I could see it being some form of storybook in vibe, even if it's like more
Yeah.
like words etched on tablets as though they are, Mandalorian history of old, but a little bit of
Mm.
that turn the page. This is what has come before. We,
Mm-hmm.
father and son, will choose what comes next.
Mm.
Um, I think could be really cool.
I really like that. I mean, you're also, just nailing it on what the themes could be and helping set that up. Again, it's both context, state of the galaxy, but just going, hey, here's what we're about to do. And I think Solo does a great job of it as something like that. And as I've said many, many times, that was kind of taken from the Willow movie. That's how they started the Willow movie. Like, I think it helps, but also I like the angle you've added of like, yeah, storybook, fun, fantasy,
Hmm.
a
Yeah.
little wonder, little
Yeah.
whimsy.
And like that latest trailer really reminded us, the heart of this movie is this father son relationship. And,
Mm-hmm.
uh, when people are listening to this, we've already talked about on the news show, but in our time, because we're recording before, we haven't yet. But
Mm-hmm.
more discussion about Mandalorian and Grogu and will it succeed? And I think a big part of that question is, will it make dads cry? And if yes, it will succeed. And the more they can do to frame this as,
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to teach a child that you love how to be safe and healthy and a good person
Yeah.
in a complicated galaxy. And like, if they can dig into that, starting with the opening text, if they can make
Mm.
dads cry with the opening text,
Yeah.
you got yourself a stew.
Yes. Great reference. Yeah.
Do you have any opinions about sort of what you want? Any other opinions about what you want out of it stylistically or thematically?
Well, stylistically, Will had mentioned a short cold open sequence, which essentially is what Rogue One has. That I'd say it's extended open into the title reveal, but like I don't know, there's something about it, about the Mandalorian and Grogu and the journey we've already been with these characters. It would be interesting to pick up with them, and I don't need I'm not talking big action sequence. It could be that Walker scene could be the cold open, right? Like I don't need that. I need something, small, intimate. Action would be fun, but just something that ends intimately with them, father and son, and the adventure is about to continue, almost as if we're this is unseen season 4 stuff, in a sense of like they've been doing this and now we join our heroes now. It just kind of the characters lend themselves to a bit of a cold open, something that's not traditional for Star Wars as much. And again, the music, we can talk about the music here, but like it's so funny that I haven't even stopped for a second to kind of realize that we might not have the big bombastic Star Wars. We very well could have the Star Wars in the logo and Mandalorian, but it doesn't seem out of place to start it differently. Ludwig Göransson's music has become, a tradition of its own, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that night in 2019, it was like brand new. It was so good that it just kind of seeped into our souls.
Mm-hmm.
So they could play with that. And I haven't even stopped to think until this great question by Will, that, oh yeah, that long time ago, I'm sure we'll be there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know if we'll get the big boom. I don't know. And I don't know if it needs it.
It would be amazing to me if it did start with a Ludwig Göransson version of the classic John Williams Star Wars opening theme with different instrumentation, different mood, and then it elides into the Mandalorian theme and really tie them together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think Favreau's got to have the instinct of like, hey, we're bringing Star Wars back. Everybody who has ever been interviewed who saw the first film talks about 1977, the explosion of those credits, and the starship overhead. I think he knows he needs to grab people by the lapels and bring them into this film.
I think that's a great point too. Also in the conversation of, can they convince people it's a film? And sometimes I roll my eyes at that, but other times I get it. I get that you would think this is just another episode. This is just season 4. I think there's some bad faith people, not even the grifter set. There's just some folks out there just dealing with this on the surface that have made YouTube essays that I've seen that are doing good numbers. And they're like, this is why this trailer sucks, or this is why it looks like TV. Like, great. Yeah. Did you watch it on your MacBook and you're now saying this looks like TV? So I don't think they need to do it, but it would serve as a counter to some of that if what you said I'm just, assuming that you're like, hey, big Star Wars logo, big Star Wars sound. I love the pitch of it kind of transitioning. It could work. Not unlike
Yeah.
Kevin Kiner's and the Kiner family's Star
Mhm.
Wars theme version with the drums.
Mhm. Yeah. I think you're really onto something with, the cold open. I mean, I would love a cold open someday that is like the James
Yeah.
Bond movies of there's some little Star Wars
Right.
logo a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and then bam, you're right in the middle of an action scene, and then it transitions into the title, the credits. Rogue One does that. It's an opening scene. It's not really the sort of same sort of like bam, right in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of an action scene like a James Bond movie. I would love that. No, I'm not convinced that this film is going to do that, but opening text into they're on that ice planet.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole every we've seen so much from that sequence, everything from Grogu crushing the mouse droid to the
Mm-hmm.
AT-ATs fallen. I would not be surprised if the film just kicks off with fun Grogu and Din working together to kick Imperial's ass, and then we go right to that scene of him going back to Sigourney Weaver for more. Like, great, keep it
Mm-hmm.
easy.
Mm-hmm.
All we want to do is punch bad guys in the face. Keep it
Mm-hmm.
easy. Keep it coming. And right away, she's like, "Not that easy."
Not that easy.
This isn't about
Yeah.
revenge. I think you're onto something. I think that might be the opening of the film, like an opening 10 to 15 minute just explosion of action and fun and charm, and all of us lean in, going great. And then the inciting incident is actually I've got this really murky shit for you to go do. Excuse me. Just kidding.
Mm-hmm. Look, the Mandalorian's already bringing out swear words at us because it's full of high adventure
Yeah.
and intrigue.
Anyway.
I love frame it as the James Bond style opening. I hadn't even thought about that for a second. That is absolutely wonderful and possible and could be
Yeah.
interesting.
I would love that. I would love that someday.
Mhm.
Great question, Will.
Mhm.
I'm not. Maybe we could be entirely wrong, and there could be the exact same classic Skywalker Saga font, except for it's purple. It could absolutely happen, or
Yep.
green to go with Grogu. That could absolutely happen. And I on this one, I trust the filmmakers, so I'm excited to see however
Yep.
they open the film.
Great stuff.
All right, moving on to our second question from our old pal, Adam Knight. Adam Knight says, gentlemen, and Jennifer. Sadly, Jennifer is taking the month of March off to deal with her workload from school, getting a big old education.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, Adam says, I bring you a prickly question. How do we continue to deal with the members of our community who refuse to accept that the former expanded universe is now merely legends and not canon? I ask only because of recent bar-like conversations with a friend who refused to admit that a Gray Jedi was not a thing because, quote, Wikipedia says it is. So there's a lot in this very simple question from our pal Adam. Certainly, I'm sure we'll get into the nature of the Gray Jedi, but also kind of the nature of how do we relate to friends who have different strong opinions from us, and how do we relate to friends who have different strong opinions when it verges into that sort of is it canon or not? Is it got a
Mm-hmm.
approved by stamp on it or not? How do you separate
Mm-hmm.
your opinion from those discussions of like, it's legends. If you like it, that's your Star Wars. Why do you need or not need it to have an approved stamp? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so before we dive in, I have not looked at the Wikipedia page for Grey Jedi, so I thought I better for this. So here's some text from the Wikipedia page on Grey Jedi. This is the behind the scenes where they talk a little bit more about how it was created and why it exists, not the story within world. So Wikipedia says, the definition of a Grey Jedi as an apostate of the Jedi Order who played both sides of the Force and was aligned evenly between the two was added with the self-described Grey Jedi Jolie Bindo in the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic video game. In addition, Star Wars Legacy, 2006, 0.5, I don't know what that is, and the Jedi Academy training manual claimed that the term described those who dabbled in both sides of the Force without becoming corrupted by darkness. However, the dark side corrupted those who used it. The Lucasfilm Story Group, which upholds George Lucas's concepts of stories, has stated that this notion of Grey and Grey Jedi contradicts the principles of the Force as established by Lucas. There is a quote from Matt Martin asking a question on the former Twitter saying that definition of Gray Jedi isn't really for us. The Wikipedia page is also clear that there are two uses in Legends. One is the Force user who uses both light and dark side, and another definition of Gray Jedi is a Jedi who is fully trained but maybe walks away from the Council and does their own thing. So that's where you get some people saying Qui-Gon Jinn is technically a Gray Jedi because to make it more gray, people mean two different things when they talk in bars about Gray Jedi. So it gets even grayer. So that's a little bit of a background of, where did this come into the storytelling? How might people be defining it? And the current stance of the story group that the definition of Gray Jedi that means somebody who uses both the light and the dark side doesn't really go with the ethos of Star Wars that the dark side is consuming, and you can't just sort of dabble in it on the weekends. Is not the ethos of what the story group perceives George Lucas's intent in creating it. All right, where do you go with this, Ken?
I want to start back at the beginning with Adam Knight, big strong man, longtime pro wrestler. You don't want to get into bar conversations with him to go awry. That's the first thing I'll say. I always want to acknowledge in the 12 years or so that we've been doing ForceCenter, we have admitted that, hey, we didn't spend a lot of time in Legends as much as other people. I have said, like, by the Jedi Academy and the Kevin J. Anderson books, I kind of was like, I'm going to bow to this for me, for a lot, and not even like big philosophical reasons. Just like, I don't know. It wasn't working for me. And that's an okay place to be. We have a lot of ForceCenter friends who this is their Star Wars. This was their introduction to Star Wars, and that needs to be celebrated. Sometimes I come on here and I play a character named Ken, and sometimes I'm the real Ken, and now sometimes it's confusing, maybe even for me.
Gray Ken.
The Gray Ken. Character Ken loves just kind of poking fun at some of the stuff, because I just think a lot of it is silly Star Wars in not a fun serial adventure way. Just that, like, it was the wilds. Like George himself might have plucked things from it, but has several times said, "Yeah, it ain't. They're having fun. Let them have fun, do their thing." But I want to reiterate. I would never want anyone to think I'm being so super serious about the Legends versus Canon thing that you would take any great offense, or that it would be anything against our philosophy here at ForceCenter. Alex David, we love Alex. We love Molly. I think the Legend stuff, he would say, was probably what pulled him in more than any other things. I don't want to speak for Alex, of course, but he was of that era. So that's where I start with this. And then I'll put it back to you, and then we'll talk about Gray Jedi.
Yeah, I am definitely of the opinion that, Legends is, I love the way that Timothy Zahn talked about it. It's the way I thought about it, and it was just so great to hear such a champion, one of the architects of Legends, Timothy Zahn, say all of Star Wars is a myth being passed down, and people have different versions of the story, and this is a version of the story, and it isn't real history where things happened a certain way or they didn't. It is in interpretation. If you love Legends, and if that's your hashtag my Luke, enjoy your story, and great. I'm happy anytime somebody has a story that they like. I think, to me, it isn't about a Legends versus canon thing. To me, it's about what are we getting out of Star Wars? Because it's just somebody's like, hey, I like the version of Star Wars where R5D4 touches the Force. I'm like, well, that's not for me, but great. But Gray Jedi starts to get into this is really about the heart of what do you get out of the philosophy of Star Wars. So I'm not concerned about Legends versus canon. I'm concerned about when something from Legends or something new from modern canon sort of jumps the moral guardrails of the why of Star Wars, then for me it's an important thing to have a strong opinion on and have the clarity on why you like it and what you're getting out of it and what it's saying.
Yes, and that leads us probably into a deeper discussion about Gray Jedi here, but that's kind of where I've ended up on. Again, it wasn't always that. In 1998, it wasn't like they've got George's philosophy wrong. I was just like, that Emperor's Royal Guard is too buff for my taste. I don't know what's going on there. I don't like this.
Why does Chewie have a flat top?
And then everyone always points out he was going undercover. Got it.
That's fine. But that's Vanilla Ice. I get it.
Yeah. But it's not that. And I would say, like, I like when things have been pulled forward, and there's also things when it's like, I remember one time getting in an argument with a friend who said he liked a song by a band, but he didn't like this other artist, and I was like, that big hit this band is singing on MTV Unplugged? It's a cover of his song. Were you aware of that? Right? I have fallen for that in Star Wars of like, I love this thing. Night Sisters, for example. This came from some of the more infamous books. You know what? Yeah, right. I read that book. I don't remember it. I like it. I like that Dave is a crusader for not legends per se in terms of what you and I talk about, but for recognizing, that's what I curled up in my room and read when I didn't have anything beyond the movies, and I love that. So that's part of, I think, what you're hitting too. That's why, all jokes aside, it's a good thing. I think it's when it's used, as we always say, when something is used as a weapon against the other parts, that's where I become the Dark Knight. That's where I become like, make me the villain, but I'm not we got to defend some of the moral guardrails and what Star Wars, what you're supposed to take from it. And the frustration for me starts to slip in where some of the love of the Knights of the Old Republic seems to be based in some misinterpretation of what Star Wars is saying or what Star Wars is about at its core. And that really is the Gray Jedi thing for me. Simply because I actually think the definition thing, I've heard that before, but I think it's a good reminder for me the next time this comes up to be like, do you mean Qui-Gon Gray? Or, I think... because I get the Qui-Gon thing in a way, and that's a different conversation. But this notion of Gray Jedi, I understand where sometimes on a case by case basis for some of the characters, even Quinlan in canon touches the dark side. There's those kind of things, but it's never, to me in general. If it's not you in the comments, you don't yell at me. But in general, it's never used like that. It is used at like, you can touch both sides. And I'm like, Star Wars is a myth. And even though there might be real world discussions to be had that are complicated and nuanced, Star Wars doesn't always need to fit into that. It is pretty direct, light, dark. Touching one side does not mean you get to go. You know what I mean? It is like it's simple for a reason.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you, and I think the which Gray Jedi are you talking about is really important, because a Jedi who is fully trained by the Council, but maybe doesn't follow the Council's beliefs. I feel like modern Star Wars has wrestled with lots of different versions of what does it mean to be a Jedi? Is it following the beliefs as you understand them, or is it being an official member of an organization? Ahsoka's story is an exploration of that. I have walked away from the Order, but it is because I don't think the Order is following up to the beliefs that they taught me, and I believe those beliefs. How do I go out in the world and act on them? Is, I think, Ahsoka's story. I think in the High Republic, the way seekers who are like, I need to find my own path is a way to deal with that. Baylan Skoll describing all of the Jedi who have been trained in the wild without as much organization after the fall of the Jedi, describing Ezra as a Boken Jedi. I think that if you're really interested in that line between the core of the beliefs and the orthodoxy of the organization, in which does Jedi apply to the beliefs or to membership in an organization, modern storytelling has many possibilities for you to wrestle with those characters and those questions. So if that's the Great Jedi we're talking about, then I kind of feel like, great, let's pursue that, because there are a million different ways to talk about it in modern canon. So that to me is great. Now let's just talk about the Great Jedi, where it's like, I believe in the light, but I kill people on the weekends.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to generalize, but that's where my hackles go up, my defenses go up over the last 15 years. This is Episode 9 Duel to Fate script of just like, yeah, there's some stuff I absolutely would have loved to see on screen that might have even been better. I can meet you there. I can have those conversations. But at the end of the day, it lands on something that is philosophically wrong and opposed to Star Wars. It's not a clamping down guardrail. It's like, this is what we're doing. This is why we're here. I agree with Matt Martin's take on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that I think the specific thing for me is, I've never been a fan of the Gray Jedi who uses both sides, because I think it is a moral attempt to have your cake and eat it too.
Yep.
I think at best it's fence sitting of I don't have to choose a side, and I think it's at worst the sort of I took the secret third position that nobody was clever enough to discover, and that makes me smarter than everyone kind of attraction and pull. And the reason that for me it doesn't work on a moral level is I think Jedi fail all the time. The Jedi pursuit is to be your absolute best self, to acknowledge fear and anger, and to process them, but to not act on them. And we've seen characters slip. The Elzar Mann story in the High Republic, Quinlan Voss's whole story in Dark Disciple is the actual Jedi Council kind of dealing with, like, can you kind of pretend tap into the dark side to get close to Dooku, or it's wrestling with that. In its firm stance is like, no, because to me the dark side isn't a box of tools. It isn't. I have the utmost respect for the Knights of the Old Republic video game, and I like the power fantasy of being a Jedi in a video game. And if I was playing a video game and I could throw my saber, but then sometimes I could also shoot lightning, I might be like, sure, I'll add that skill to my list of abilities to spend my force points on. But that's a video game, and that's a power fantasy. But if we're talking about the storytelling of Star Wars, Darkseid isn't a box of tools. It isn't a list of other abilities. It is letting anger and fear consume you and guide your actions. Consume you, blind you, guide your actions. It's about acting out of fear and anger and hatred. And I don't think you can just be consumed just a little bit every once in a while. I think, to me, it is about fear and anger and pain. And those are real. They must be acknowledged. They can't be denied. And in the real world, sometimes they can spur us to action. But then what is the action we take? And what is the why of it? So many things right now in the world to be afraid of, to be angry about, and they need to spur us to action. But what kind of action? Is it vengeance and retribution because you want to unleash your fury? Or is it, I am angry and this needs to change, so I'm going to make a proactive plan and work with others to change the things that are bad? And I don't feel like the Gray Jedi stuff is wrestling with any of that. It's just saying, I can get really angry and kill a fool on the weekends and then go back to, on the weekdays, believing that life is precious. And it isn't like the Jedi don't kill. The Jedi do wrestle with that, So that's my take.
There's a lot of room in Star Wars for philosophical wrestling. I think the Gray Jedi as a landing spot, as presented in the first definition, is the problem to me. Clearly.
Yeah, like I solved the problem,
right?
Which is like, how did you solve the problem?
Right. Rey, you solved it by tapping into your anger. You defeated evil, and that's what we've been missing. That's not right.
Yeah, that to me is just and I think to me it is important. To think about what the balance of the Force is, and you can Google it, and you can find George Lucas's, speech to the Clone Wars writers' room. There does need to be, the dark side is undeniable. It's real. It is a part of reality, light and dark. There is fear and pain and violence and anger, and that's the part of nature, and it's a part of the cycle of life, and all those things. The dark side is accelerating that. So everything is death and fear and pain, and everything is fear and pain and selfishness. And so that idea of like, I'm going to believe in accelerating fear and pain and anger and selfishness every once in a while for half the time. But the other half, I'm going to be opposed to those things, just doesn't make sense to me as a enlightened moral position.
I yeah, I love just boiling down the balance of the force concept, which is sometimes, the discussions have been so muddied over the years, or it's confusing. Well, does that mean that the Sith, light, dark, and dark unnaturally pushing over the light, and oftentimes it's people, and so it would make sense that you have a well trained, a strong group of people to stand in front of the light to defend the dark. But when those people in the light then say, you know what? Maybe if we went out and got ahead of it and started, that person looks like they might take some dark actions. Let's go ahead and get them. Let's go ahead and kill them. Let's go ahead and round them up. Then you are now unnaturally pushing dark over light, and even if it might be in the name of the light, as you say, you're doing wrong. And I think that's where I wrestle with it.
I'd like to revisit Dark Disciple at some point, because I think maybe Dark Disciple is the story that has wrestled with this. But the other thing for me, I'd be like, I would love to have Filoni tell a story about, and maybe that's where we're going with Balin. Honestly, you want a Gray Jedi? Balin thinks it's all for the right cause, but he's tapping into the dark side, and he's slaughtering anybody in his way because, well, the Jedi have done things wrong and they're bad, so I have to take the lofty position of killing everybody on this New Republic ship.
Yeah. For the greater good.
For the greater good. Yeah.
Greater good. Yeah.
I do want to touch just a little bit, because you and I have both spent some time on this, mostly positive channel, gnashing our teeth about difficult conversations with folks about Star Wars. And that's part of how Adam sort of frames his question about talking with people in bars and everything, or bar-like spaces. How are you feeling these days about, like, it's one thing for us to have our podcast and have our opinions about how the Gray Jedi work, but then there's the talking to people about it in person and how much we want it to become a conflict or not a conflict, and wrestling with our own darkness and how angry Star Wars takes from people might make us. Where are you at with kind of navigating all that?
I'm trying to just make sure I do not unnaturally push dark over light. and I have, that's why, if you're relatively new here, we've kind of coined this bar conversation phrase that Adam used, by you and I and Jennifer, describing just Star Wars conversations out in the wild, which can be hard to have. They just can be hard to have. And I think my frustration is when I see just straight up some ignorance out there. And my problem with it is that does how you talk about pop culture is sometimes how you talk about the world at large. And I think there's a lot of folks just not realizing that, who are well-intentioned and well-meaning outside of the Star Wars discussions, but just are fueling some negative things there. So I get a little defensive there. And then I don't know. It's still ongoing because I'm working it, because I don't want to be. And I talked about it on the new show this week, but I had such a wonderful, positive conversation at a bar about Star Wars that so took me back, because I was so ready for the fight, that even when they did say some things in the conversation that were like, hey, they didn't like this, and yeah, I don't know if we needed that, or they should have done this with Solo. Like, we had already met on the place of joy and enlightenment. We were already on the same place. The edges can be blurred. The edges can be rough. I still don't love Ahsoka more than other people. But if you're in the same spot, I know we have some people in our audience who don't like Last Jedi. We have some people in our audience who don't like Rise of Skywalker. And they don't come at us with a condescending pat on the head, mostly. And that's a personal thing. So maybe I'm Marty McFly. You call me chicken, kind of like Raid. But I just got this recently, on my Game of Thrones podcast, and it set me off in a way. And where someone just was like, "Come on, Ken, it's horrible writing." Like, I haven't spent years explaining why I like it, which does not mean you have to like it or you have to understand it. So it gets very personal. Also, it often comes when I'm trying to explain what we do at ForceCenter, which is, hey, we're this pretty positive community that tries to celebrate this thing we love. Yeah, well, Solo sucked. Okay.
That is it in a nutshell of, like, yes, you offer people, you extend your hand with grace and it is slapped away. And I don't think people understand how deeply they are slapping away the hand of grace that one tries to extend by saying, we love talking about the ideas and every opinion is welcome. Oh yeah. How about This one, asshole.
Yeah, how about this opinion? Obi-Wan Kenobi's a jerkball. Well, yeah, okay, but yeah.
Well, yes, I will. I will endeavor to accept your opinion. I think
Yeah.
for me, it comes down to. I think we all have the decision of what kind of conversation do we want to engage in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that to me, it's just so important that people have subjective opinions, and whatever your opinion, whatever your emotional, personal reaction is to any bit of storytelling, that is yours, and nothing can take it away.
Yeah.
If somebody sits down and just is like, I really don't enjoy Rise of Skywalker. It irritates me. It's too fast. I don't like it. I have nothing but respect for your subjective opinion, your emotional experience of a piece of storytelling and a piece of art. So there's subjective opinion, and then there's scholarly analysis of the text. And I feel like we offer our personal opinions, but often when we analyze something, we try to say, I think Rise of Skywalker is not just about dynasty. It is also about democracy. Here's my evidence from the text that supports my argument. And for the most part in bars, I don't think we are engaging in here's my essay with examples from the text and supporting arguments. That's not how we're having discussions in bars. We're having discussions about what my subjective opinion is, but we have been taught by culture to frame my subjective opinion as though it is structured analysis with evidence from the text. I had this conversation that weekend when I was at the film festival, the what do you do conversation, and I kept just trying to say, I got a podcast, and tried to change the conversation, and then people would be like, about what? And like, here we go, Star Wars. And one conversation just started with how great Andor was, and like, I can do this, and we talked about Andor.
Yep.
And then Skeleton Crew was really annoying because those kids were really annoying. And like, well, if you found them annoying, that is your subjective opinion, and there's simply nothing I can say about that because it is your truth. Yeah. Enjoy. Then didn't like Ahsoka. Like, that's fine. And tried to ride along with that and say, I think, in my opinion, Ahsoka is harder to get into unless you're really, into these characters and know them better. And that's my subjective opinion, and other people disagree with that. And then he asked me if the Acolyte was good. And I said, well, what kind of Star Wars do you like? And he went, oh, and rolled his eyes. And that to me is the heart of it, is that people believe that their subjective opinion translates to factual good or bad. And that, of course, Andor is good. And I should be able to tell you what other Star Wars is objectively bad. And it's like, well, I mean, what do you want from me? It's true. We all bring our own experiences to things. So I know I'm going on a bit, but to me, I think it really is about, I just want to roll with people's subjective opinions. And if their opinions are the normal, like, I want to tell you everything that's awful about this, then I, try to, expose their fire to the air and let it burn for a second. And then put a cup over it, because I don't want to join them in that. And a bar is not going to be the place for scholarly analysis. And I don't think my opinion of Star Wars is more valid than anybody else's, but I do think my analysis is more scholarly, because we've been doing this bleeping podcast for over a decade. And that's a really hard place to sit in sometimes, of like, I don't think your opinion is wrong, but I might disagree with your analysis, or I might think you haven't engaged with the text to have a deeper analysis. You just watched it once and you didn't like it, and that's valid. But then sometimes you'll say, here's what it was about. And then I feel like, I don't think there's evidence in the text that is what the story is about, or even what happened in the story. With like the whole Last Jedi discussion of that movie was all about how Luke thinks the Jedi should end. Like, that's just literally not what happens in the film. That's just literally not how the film ends. And that's about, analysis as opposed to opinion.
Yeah. And no, well said. And this has come up a lot of the last couple of years. I think this seeps into a lot of my Star Wars Life Adventures, just because, like, after 12 years of this show, about 13, 14 years in the space, you alongside me, Jennifer, there as well. Like, I have just personally, I'm frayed over some of this. because it does affect things. It does spin out. It not only takes away people's joy, but it does get into the political conversations and the readings of the world. And I had a long-term close, that was my brother Anakin, you're my brother Anakin friendship severely be damaged because their misreading of Game of Thrones, it's not about whether they like season 8 but their misreading of the character of Jon Snow was so off base that it had fueled their view of the world that it's like, we can't continue. It's not about opinion. You have missed what they've said. You probably also think, Born in the USA is a patriotic song. Like this is a problem, and it's a problem that we run into. So this is the reason it comes up a lot for me here. But at the end of the day, I will say, if we're out in the wild and we're having a conversation, and some of the stuff I talk about, our philosophies are often, quite frankly, you got to hear my buddy Joseph. You got to go listen to our episode. It's because I'm like, hey, I want you to maybe reevaluate this and find a reason to connect it to your own life. I think you might find it. I think you haven't engaged enough, and that's understandable because you all don't have the time I have to watch Solo 15 times and realize how wonderfully political it is and how important it is to the story. You don't have the time, but hey, maybe think of these things. And one of the greatest things, the legacy of this show is not just our listener base, but friends of ours that have come up and been like, yeah, I don't know if I'll ever love that as much as you, that particular thing, but after hearing you guys talk about it, I saw it in a different way and I got it. Alex Damon has some of the worst Rise of Skywalker opinions ever. But we can meet on the field of joy. And I just sometimes want to pull people into the joy. I just go into the dark side to do it. And as we've discussed, that's wrong.
Yes. Yeah. I yearn for us all being better about subjective and objective, because I think they're both parts of being human and alive, and they're both valuable. And I think when we make the subjective objective, it also lessens how important it is objective things that are truly objective. Art is subjective, and that's beautiful. Gravity isn't. the world being round isn't. And this weekend, I also heard somebody straight up argue at a bar that the world is flat. Ahsoka is good or bad is subjective. The world is flat is not. And when we conflate those things, that everything is just this sort of scroll for us to have a hot take on, it's beautiful to value what is subjective, and it's crucial to value what is objective.
Yeah. So anyways, all that to say, I don't need, I'm way more snippy in comments response these days. I just kind of I've been so nice for so long. Now I'm just like, get the F out of here. And I just don't need the condescension, but we have dedicated ForceCenter friends in our Discord who love Legends, who love it. And they don't mind pushing back on me. They don't mind saying, hey, Ken, that's the Chewie in disguise. I get it. And so that's fun, and I take it fun, and I hope everyone is in on the joke of the conversation. But I think I'll end it here by saying I just want you to have some joy.
Yeah. My final thing is just like, to Adam's question of just like, in a bar conversation, I don't need to prove somebody right or wrong. Just, if their opinions are real negative, I just try to write it out, try to be as understanding as I can, and stop at a point level that I can't be understanding, and just say like, well, I understand why you might like them, but Gray Jedi aren't for me, is usually how I would do it. But a part of me wants to get into the scholarly debate. And I just want to share this quote because it's stuck with me for decades. My two of my oldest best friends are just they're scholarly geniuses who also have strong opinions. And I was at a bar once where this guy was going on about this theory that's out there that the writer H.P. Lovecraft and Aleister Crowley were in league together, and Aleister Crowley was telling Lovecraft to say secret things in his writing. And my friend just said, I'm a scholar. I know everything about H.P. Lovecraft, and my friend here is a scholar. He knows everything about Aleister Crowley, and you're wrong. And I don't want to talk about this anymore. That's not me. I'm never going to do that in a bar. But sometimes, to be honest, I want to say, like,
yes,
I've watched Solo 15 times, and you are simply incorrect about that fact. And let's move on. Not about your opinion or your taste. But the fact is just incorrect. Is tempting sometimes, but not my personal way.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Mm-hmm.
All right. That's it for our questions.
That's it. Great questions. Will, Adam, great questions indeed. As Joseph said up top, if you want to ask these kind of longer, more thought out questions with your own experiences in them, that's on Patreon. Become a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/ForceCenter. You can also get the call-in link to our call-in shows when we do those on Friday. And don't forget the podcast. It's available everywhere. And on Sundays, we re-release audio only, our episodes of Databank Brawl, which, if you're like, man, these guys and that Jennifer girl, they go real deep into Star Wars. Databank Brawl, we take robots and crush Naboo political figures with them. So let's go check it out. There you go. You can follow me at Ken Napzok, my website, kennapzok.com. Check out my shows like The Blathering Live, Casually Talk up and running again after a great first season of Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which I'm still going to make sure at least you watch, Joseph. But there you go. On the list, indeed. But we're speaking of lists, where can they find you? And maybe potentially soon your film.
Yeah, you can find me on social media at Joseph Scrimshaw is my handle. You can visit my website, josephscrimshaw.com, or the website I got up for our film now. That is at deadmediamovie.com. We were just in North Carolina, beautiful Durham, North Carolina, at a film festival. We got more screenings that will be coming up that I'll be able to talk about soon, and more plans hopefully coming together. If you want to keep learning about that, we have a mailing list for Dead Media that you can find on my website and sign up for more information. Thank you all for the support.
Thank you all indeed, and that's it for now. So, hey, all you Gray Jedi, come on in, jump on into the poolside of joy. It's great. We'll see you next time here on ForceCenter.